I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, somebody we haven't had on for a while. He's out with a new book. It's a novel, actually. It's called Speculator, and I'm giving him away right now. It's John Casey, written with his co-author John Hunt. Speculator. It's a novel. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Of course, we're talking about Doug Casey. Doug Casey, of course, of famed Casey Research. You're a best-selling author with your Crisis Investing in the late 70s and early 80s. Doug Casey, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Well, Greg, it is nice to be back here with you.
Before we talk about your book, your novel, which we'll get to a little later, a lot of people are sitting here, like me, going, what's he going to say about what's going on right now? We've had the debt ceiling just passed. We've had the Fed raise interest rates, and obviously a slow economy. It's growing at less than 1%. We got big battles in Washington, D.C., a lot of shaky stuff. Some of the big money managers are saying there's a doom. Mark Faber, gloom, doom, and boom, is saying we're in for a 50% cut in the stock market. Give me your appraisal about what is going on in the stock market with your big picture worldview.
Well, look, I think we've entered upon what I call the Greater Depression. I call it the Greater Depression because it's going to be much worse, but also much different than what happened in the 1930s. That started in 2007. Look at it this way, Greg. Look at it as a giant financial hurricane. And we entered the leading edge of the hurricane in 2007 and 2008 and 9 and part of 10. And for the last several years, we've been going through the eye of the storm. Big hurricane, big eye. But now we're going into the trailing edge, and it's going to be very, very ugly. What papered things over? Why did it get better for the last few years? Because these governments have lowered interest rates to not just zero, but less than zero in parts of the world. And they've created scores of trillions of new currency units, which have poured oil on the financial waters. But that currency still exists, and it's going to come out, and it's going to evidence itself in the form of retail inflation. So far, it's just been inflation in the financial markets. They've created a bond super bubble. They've created a stock market bubble. They've created a real estate bubble in a number of places in the world. So this is going to be very, very ugly. Let's hold on to your hat time.
When you wrote Crisis Investing back in the late 70s, this was, the national debt was less than $1 trillion, and now it's $20 trillion. What scares you? Why is it going to be different when you said this is going to be different this time? What's going to make it look different? How's it going to look to be different this time?
The amount of debt in the world has increased enormously, catastrophically. And debt is important. It's not just an academic thing. It means that some people owe that money to some other people. And it's going to become very, very hard to pay back. They've been able to do this with interest rates at all-time historic low levels. Now, back in 1980 to 82, interest rates on government paper, a lot of people forget this, were in the 15% range. The U.S. government was paying 15% on its T-bills and bonds. Now, they're at historic lows. So with all this debt, as interest rates, which have been going down for the last 35 years, as they head up again, that debt's going to become impossible to service. So that's part of it, in a nutshell. And all that money that's been created to buy bonds on the part of the Federal Reserve and other central banks has flowed into the stock market. Okay, this is why the rich have gotten richer, because the rich control lots of stocks and lots of bonds, both of which have done extremely well. The average guy doesn't, so he's fallen behind, in addition to the fact that his wages have actually gone down. So this has the makings of a sociological and political time bomb that could go off.
And a lot of people have asked me, and I failed to ask this question, and you're a down-to-earth guy, even though you live abroad. I don't know, you're coming to me from Argentina or Uruguay. Where are you coming from me today?
I'm coming to you from Cafayate, Argentina, where some years ago I did a rather fantastic development down here. If it wasn't for the mechanics of broadcasting, I would turn around and you could see the vineyard in back of me. But right now, we're just looking at a wall because we want the light to my front.
So you're a international man of intrigue and mystery, and you're also a man on the street. You're a common guy, and people want to ask what this question answered. What does it look like to the man on the street when you say that it's going to be different this time and we're going to have inflation? What is it going to look like to people, just normal, everyday people without a lot of stocks and bonds and wealth?
Well, I think it's going to be quite ugly, frankly. The average guy doesn't have any savings at all. I mean, it was only about 6 months ago that some big organization, Pew or USA Today, I forget who, found that 40% of Americans couldn't pay a $250 out of the blue, breakdown on their car or something like that. Most people are up to their eyeballs with credit card debt and mortgage debt and automobile debt and student debt. What that means is that the average American has been living above his means. In fact, the country has been living way above its means. Look, the U.S. runs a close to $1 trillion per year trade deficit with the rest of the world, but it's a great deal for us. The U.S. prints up dollars, and we ship those people dollars, and they ship us Mercedes and Sonys and coffee and all the other things that are imported to this country. But that can't go on forever. So what's it going to look like? Very high levels of inflation. It was ugly back in 2009 and 2010. People lost their jobs because when a society is living above its means, people that are waiters and bartenders and masseurs and masseuses, they're fired because people have to do those things for themselves. So you're going to see lots of unemployment, among other things. Now, and there could be a lot of social upsets in this country. It seems to me the U.S. right now, there's so much antagonism. It's almost like pre-Civil War. There's actual hatred in the U.S. at this point. I mean, it used to be that Republicans and Democrats, they could disagree about politics, but they could have a civil conversation about a difference of opinion. But now it's active hatred between these two groups. This is not going to end well.
Do you think that people will, what's the best way for people to protect themselves? I mean, at this point, people ask me, what do I do? What do I do? Should I go out and buy gold and silver? And it depends on, if you got $1,000. No, don't go out and buy gold and silver. Go out and put a set of tires on your car. I mean, what should people do to protect themselves?
Well, this is a real problem because with the bond market in a super bubble and the stock market in a bubble and real estate grossly overpriced as well, you don't want to own any of those things. The problem is if you have a pension, your pension fund owns all those things. So the chances are excellent your pension fund could dry up and blow away. And the other problem is that the value of the U.S. dollar is going to go into free fall in the next few years. And this means if you're getting a fixed pension, that's going to go down too. This is very, very catastrophic for the average guy in the U.S. And then it's going to come to violence. I mean, when you're watching the news in the next few years, just turn off the audio and put on the Rolling Stones' "Street Fighting Man" as background music. That's all you're going to need to. That's all you're going to need to hear while you're watching TV.
Are we on the leading edge of going back into this storm? Is this why all of a sudden gold's caught this bid? I mean, here we're finding out the Fed's going to raise interest rates, which is usually death to gold and silver, but yet we're getting kind of this bid up, just this small incremental climb. Is this what's happening in the gold and silver market, that big money players are seeing what you're seeing and seeing this happening?
Well, a number of governments around the world, not the US government, but the Chinese and the Russians are buying a lot of gold, number one. Why? Because it's the only financial asset that is not simultaneously somebody else's liability. It doesn't matter whether we have runaway inflation, catastrophic deflation, gold is there. It's an actual asset, unlike the paper that governments print up. And there's no point in owning paper today because interest rates are so low. Interest rates are below the level of actual inflation at this point. So yes, people should buy gold and they should buy silver. But first things first. I mean, look, I hate to sound apocalyptic, but everybody ought to have at least a couple of weeks of food in their shelves. I mean, that's just commonsensical.
And so that what it's going to look like for the man on the street, is it going to be, are stores going to be cleaned out? Is credit going to absolutely cease? Is Donald Trump going to be able to stop some of this? Is he? Let's start with that there. Are stores going to be cleaned out? Are you going to have problems just getting things? And I want to get back to Donald Trump.
Well, look, stores will always have stuff unless they put on wage and price controls, which is entirely possible. Nixon did it back in 1971, and it was a catastrophe, and the shelves were emptying out in stores. And since these people don't learn from history but feel they have to do something, that's quite possible that they'll do that again to counteract the inflation that they've caused.
They did that in Venezuela recently.
Yes, of course. Now, there's a country that has some of the largest oil reserves in the world, but people are actually starving in Venezuela, where fruit grows on trees. And they're still starving because of government action. People don't understand that the government isn't your friend. The government isn't the solution. It's not a cornucopia. The government is the problem. But people keep looking for government solutions. And this is why I'm afraid that Mr. Trump, it's going to end badly for him. First of all, he's not a libertarian. He's an authoritarian. And his basic feeling is that he can run the U.S. as if it were a large private corporation. Well, that's not correct. Many of his ideas are good. He wants to drain the swamp. I don't think he's going to be able to do it because the deep state is too entrenched in Washington. How are you going to get rid of the CIA? You can't. It's completely useless. It's dysfunctional. It serves no useful purpose, but it's got its own sources of income. People within it are like the Praetorian Guard in Roman days. They're armed, they're dangerous, you can't get rid of them. And that's true of almost all these government agencies. You can't even pull them out by the root anymore. And when the economy collapses while Trump is in office, it won't be his fault, but he'll be blamed for it because he's in office. So this is very scary.
And you think that is Trump a better guy to handle what's coming than other people? Say Hillary Clinton, that criminal. Do you think that he's a better guy to handle what's coming? You think we have a better chance of at least him kind to guide us out of this big giant debt mess that we find ourselves in, and not just in America but the world?
Well, I don't think we can guide ourselves out of it. Number one.
I mean, will we? I'm going to interrupt you here. Will he just pull the trigger on the full faith and credit and say, "Yep, no more. We're going to default on this. We're reorganizing this. Sorry."
Well, I hope he does. First of all, he's vastly, vastly better than Hillary, who you're quite correct is a criminal. And I'm disappointed that there's not an independent prosecutor that's investigating the numerous things that are strange and fishy that she and Bill have done over the years.
Like her global charity fraud, she's shutting down now, the Clinton Global Initiative. But I digress. Go ahead.
With Clinton, it started years ago with when she made, over the period of 2 months, $100,000 trading cattle. Anybody that knows anything about commodity futures knows that was these trades were just put into her account at the end of the day for, I think it was $99,545. And my only question is, what happened to the other $500 of the bribe? And it went on from there, and strange deaths of people and so forth. So yeah, if he's going to actually drain the swamp, they hate him, he hates them. I hope he does drain the swamp. But so many of the people that he's appointed around him are swamp creatures. They're members of the deep state. So I'm not optimistic that Donald is going to succeed.
Do you think that he might go ahead? I interrupted you. You think he might go ahead and stop the full faith and credit of the? That would be a question I'd ask him if we get to, because that's what he did with his. He didn't pay the money back when he got into trouble in the 90s. He reorganized it and cut the debt. Do you think that's what he's going to do on a much bigger level?
That is a very good point. I've been saying this for some years, that the national debt and the $20 trillion that they talk about, that's only part of it. There's all kinds of liabilities and insurance things like the FDIC and so forth that when the economy goes down are going to be called. So I think the government should default on the debt. Now, people say, that's shocking. The U.S. government can't do that. Well, governments do it all the time, and we're going to have to do it. And it's better to have a controlled demolition of a building that's going to fall down than letting it fall down randomly. And there are good moral reasons why it ought to be defaulted on. Number one, it just constitutes an albatross around the necks of future generations of Americans. Their parents and grandparents have frittered this money away and blown it on welfare and warfare, but their kids and grandkids are going to have to pay for it. So I don't believe in turning the next generations of Americans into indentured servants. So it should be defaulted on for that reason, a moral reason. And it also ought to be defaulted on because the people that have been buying this debt are primarily the elite, the deep state people. So they should be punished for financing the U.S. government.
Do you think that the deep state will take it in the face this next time that the stock market crash? First of all, you're thinking that stock markets are going to crash. If you don't like stocks and bonds and that kind of thing, you think the stock market's going to crash. Do you think the elite will finally get the pie in the face they deserve that they should have gotten in 07 and 08?
Well, yeah, I think they should because, of course, the government saved their bacon back then when Paulson got on his knees, literally, in front of, who's that left-wing senator, Pelosi or Boxer, and begged her to bail out Goldman Sachs and these other companies, so the whole thing wouldn't come down. It's going to come down eventually, but look, I'm worried about that. But we're in a situation that is, the country seems to me like just before a civil war. I mean, it's more serious than just a financial collapse, and it's likely to be set off by a financial collapse. But worse than that is that, although I'm very happy that Trump is trying to be, friendly and intelligent with Russia, because as Thomas Jefferson said, you should be friendly with everybody. But still, you might get into some kind of a war with China, with sending the U.S. Navy into the East China Sea and the South China Sea, which they consider their lake. It's as dangerous as if the Chinese Navy was sending their carriers off of the coast of California. It's very provocative, pointless, and stupid. So there's a lot of dangers out there, including Syria, where apparently there's 5,000 troops at this point. And it makes no sense at all. What business does the U.S. have in Syria? None. It means nothing to us.
So you think that this thing just won't be an economic collapse? You think it'll be, we'll get full-blown fighting in the streets, as the Rolling Stones say, a civil war?
Look, this is part of history. And just because the U.S. has been a pleasant consumer society for many years doesn't mean that we're immune from that type of thing. So there's an excellent chance that'll happen. these blue counties and red counties in the U.S., it's a real culture clash. They don't belong in the same country anymore. They're two separate countries, at least.
And gold and silver, where do you think that the prices will go, or will it be immaterial as the dollar may vaporize? I don't know. Is there a dollar price on gold and silver that you think is going to go to? Is the dollar going to cease to exist? Can you just talk about, because they're so intertwined, gold, silver, precious metals, paper money. What's going to happen with the dollar and gold and silver in relationship to one another?
Well, that is the $64 question. But they're going to both go up, because I'll say this again. They're the only
gold and silver.
Yeah, they're the only, gold and silver are the only financial assets that are not simultaneously somebody else's liability. So there's going to be a panic into them at some point soon, I think. And in terms of what price would I put a figure on? Look, you've got to look at these things in terms of today's dollars, because 10 years from now, I don't even know if the dollar is going to exist. But I think the gold within the next 5 years, in real terms, is going to triple or quadruple or quintuple. And silver is going to go up by more than that. It'll go up 5 to 10 times. And hopefully, they'll turn into bubbles. There'll be a gold and silver bubble in the future. And that'll be wonderful for people that own it now.
That'll be the last bubble. Is that right? Is that the last bubble? Gold and silver, the last bubble available?
Yeah, because they're creating bubbles in all kinds of things by creating trillions of new units of funny money. And it's not just the Americans that are doing this. The Europeans, the Japanese, the Chinese, they're all doing the same thing. So this is going to end badly on a worldwide basis. And I don't know if this is reasonable for most of our listeners right now, but your biggest danger is actually political. Therefore, you should be diversified politically. You shouldn't have all of your eggs in one political basket. You've got to try to, if you're in a position to, diversify some assets outside of the U.S. also.
All right, I don't know how many people can do that, but I want to move on to your book. I'm holding it up right now. I'm going to go to a tight shot of myself here. Oh, that's you. Let's go back to me. There you go. Doug Casey, John Hunt, Speculator. It's a novel. And let me just read the first part of it. It is about the greatest gold discovery in history. Draws a young Charles Knight to West Africa, where he unearths deception, violence, and romance. Can you, Doug Casey, just talk about why did you do a novel like this? Oh, it's in the first in the series of the High Ground novels. There's even a website for this. This is a real departure for you as a best-selling author. Why this book? Why Speculator? And tell me about it.
Greg, because you can say things in fiction that you cannot say in nonfiction. And I think that's important. So this book it's a great novel from a reading point of view, but it's very instructional on how the markets work, about the background of gold mining, frauds, speculation, and even revolutions in Africa. And I've got to say that if I was 30 again and wanted to make my way in the world, I would go to Africa. That's where the action is going to be. Anybody that wants to make serious money as an entrepreneur should look at Africa, because it's an on-level playing field where you're on the high side of the on-level playing field. You've got experiences, you got capital, you got connections that the people over there don't have. And if you can bring those things there, you can make a lot of money in Africa and have a lot of fun. So that's also what this novel is about.
Doug Casey, thanks for coming on. Here is the book again. We'll put links up for you YouTube people. You just go up to the right through, and it'll take you back to the USA Watchdog. Look for it after the interview section. There's a website, and the website is highgroundnovels.com. Is that right?
highgroundnovels.com. And the other thing that people ought to look at is internationalman.com. It's a free daily blog.
And also, you also write a lot for Casey Research as well. I'll put all that stuff, which is your namesake, Casey Research. I'll put all that stuff up. Your book just came out recently. Again, it is Doug Casey and John Hunt, Speculator, the first in the High Ground series. I hope they make some movies out of it or a TV show. Doug Casey, really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com. A very interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing it with us today.
Greg, my pleasure. Thank you.